milf, dilf. Both very self-explanatory words that, you know, that stand for mother I'd like to fuck, and dad, not sure, daddy I'd like to fuck. And they're very straightforward acronyms. And you'd think that the general populace would be able to comprehend such a simple slang. However, these days people seem to lack the comprehension to do so. So, I'm here to clear things up a bit. My credentials: I am a certified senior citizen fetishist and an enjoyer of the aesthetics of parents, grandparents, and uh, anything adjacent to these guardian roles. Okay, so let's let's define what a MILF or a DILF even is. It's a parent you'd like to fuck. Okay, it's a parent, a mother or a father that you find attractive. Now, look, I understand that language constantly evolves and that certain words that used to be specific turn into some sort of an umbrella term, but it's not really a good thing if certain changes to a language are a result of people just genuinely not knowing how certain words should be used. Like it's not it's concerning how so many, um in a more general, like going beyond like the topic at hand here. It's so very concerning how the English language, the English language is changing in ways due to people being stupid. It's not a good thing, obviously. And anyway, going back to whole MILF and DILF thing. It's a parent you find sexually attractive, right? And I understand the MILF and DILF slang kind of like expanding beyond just parents and also just referring to people of a certain age group, people who give off the vibe of a parent. It's just disappointing when it's used on people who clearly aren't a MILF or a DILF. So, let's let's establish some criteria for what makes a MILF or a DILF. First of all, the person needs to be a parent. They need to have a child, a kid. On a technical level, right? They need to. And you know what? I can see how people like also just include anyone with like a vibe of a parent, someone who's like very motherly or fatherly, very maternal, paternal. You know what? We can squeeze that in. We can squeeze that in. I understand. Not everyone has a kid, especially these days. So, okay, criteria one either has to actually be a parent or has the vibe of a parent. And, you know, this a very important exclusion that um I personally go by is that teen parents aren't included in the MILF and DILF term umbrella. I mean, it just feels wrong. That's not. It doesn't just feel wrong. It is like objectively strange to call a teenager a mother or father you like to shebang. Yeah, just so we're clear here. Criteria number two, they need to be of a certain age. I get it. On a technical level, a person could have a child, but like anyone could have a child at any age. So they need to be of a certain age to actually fully embody the image of a parent. Anyone in their 20s, not a MILF or a DILF. Look, 25 is still young. Even though like your brain is already like fully developed, you're still like you're not even a quarter of the way. Are you a quarter of the way? Average lifespan is 80, so I'm not really good with math. Oh, okay, you are a quarter of the way, but like it doesn't really feel a quarter of the way because like so let's just say you're not really like a quarter of the way of like your adulthood, right? Yeah, I feel like this is like a better. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. I'm saying a lot of ums and uhs. If it's not obvious, I don't have a script. I'm kind of just raw dogging this whole discussion. Yeah. Uh, again, MILF DILF either need to be like a parent or someone with a parental vibe. Actually, you know what? Let's define what a parental vibe is. A maternal paternal. They can't be domineering. They really can't. That's not that's not parent material. Look. It doesn't matter if your own parent was like was of this like was of fuck was like strict or whatever. We're talking about like the ideal parent when it comes to like parent the vibes of a parent. They need to be like the ideal. So this is like someone nurturing but not too nurturing, someone who has a firm hand but not too firm of a hand. An example, a real life example of this. Let's say Bob Ross. That guy definitely does he have a kid? Is Bob Ross? Bob Ross children? I think he does, right? Yeah, he does. He has a son. Oh, and he's carrying on. Okay, he's carrying on his father's legacy. Steve Ross, Bob Ross, and Steve. That makes sense. Bob and Steve, and his wife is Vivian. Oh, it's a beautiful name, but like kind of stands out from the. Okay. Anyway, what was I saying? Right, the ideal parent. Like we're talking about like the ideal. So again, parent on a technical level or parent on like the on vibes. Second criteria, they need to be of a certain age. I'd say personally, 35 and above. Early 30s still too young. Gotta say. But of course, I understand that other people would feel 30 might be because 30 is objectively still young. I'd say the moment you're actually old is when you're like 35. But anyway, yeah, of a certain age, so long as it's above the 20s range, that's MILF DILF material. Now, um, a MILF or a DILF, there's a secret third criteria that I don't see a lot of people talking about, right? And it's like their potential to become a JILF, a grandparent I'd like to fuck. Now, hear me out on this, right? If they're like the type to stay looking young, right? Like they do like they hit a certain age, like they look mature, they do look their age, but then like they keep getting older and like they kind of like stagnate in terms of looks, I feel like that's not MILF or DILF material, right? And that's because, like, a parent is mostly usually bound to become a grandparent. So a MILF or a DILF that cannot evolve from being a MILF or a DILF is not a true MILF or DILF. That's just an attractive older person, right? I'd say like, oh, what's a good example of that? What I'm talking about? 'Cause, like, it's very, this is a very nuanced subject, and even I'm like admittedly not the most like, I do have enough to start a discussion on this topic, but I don't have like enough to like continue even deeper into this, right? I don't know how to end this. I kind of just like started rambling about milk or dope. I'm very passionate about this subject. Um, oh, like the thing that like made me kind of like talk about this in the first place. I keep seeing like people calling like the individual like mommy or oh my god, I completely forgot. Okay, look, a milf or another fourth thing, um, is like they need to be reputable, right? They need to be of okay. No, you know what? That doesn't need to be a fourth thing. I know people who enjoy like pathetic milfs or like deadbeats, and that doesn't really like I guess I see the appeal in a way. So long as the deadbeat is more so like, oh, they're depressed and like they're kind of like they're no, actually no. If they are deadbeat, they don't count as a milf or dilf because like they're failing at being a parent. So they're not actually a they're not actually a mother or father because like they're not a true mother or father. You know what I mean? Okay. So fourth thing, if they're a deadbeat, they're not a milf or dilf. Like if they don't have a good job, they don't have a good reputation, they don't um yeah, like that's you need to be a role model to be a parent, right? To be a proper parent. I get that. Like okay, what do I mean? What do I mean? Okay, when I say good reputation, I mean like they have friends who trust them. To I'm not really talking about like backgrounds or origins or whatever. Like people go through a lot of things. This is more so like, do people trust them? Are they a person that is worth a person who's lovable, respectable, admirable in spite of other flaws that they have, and like you know yeah, okay, summary one, uh either a parent or a on a technical level or on vibes. Two, they need to be of a certain age. Three, they need to have the potential to become a jilf. And four, they can't be a deadbeat. Okay, okay, so like that concludes it, I think. um yeah, that concludes it. Wait, does it conclude it? Yeah, I think it does. Well, hmm. well well okay, wait, there's one last look, one last thing. Sorry, I have like one last thing. Mommies and like daddies, like the whole like the mommy and daddy thing, right? I feel like it's like a separate thing to milfs and dilfs. Because like milfs and dilfs, that's like these are terms like that are descriptors. You describe something. They're a category. And a mommy or a daddy, that's just those are like pet no, not pet names. Well, like titles? Not really. But like they're names that you use during sexual encounters and like you just, when you're like role playing with you don't necessarily need to be anything to be called mommy or daddy. Not but you need to be a certain thing to be called a mommy or a daddy. You know what I mean? There's a distinction there between being called mommy or and being a mommy, being called daddy, being a daddy. there is an age. You don't need to be of a certain age to be I mean, like, I feel like if you're like too young and like you're doing the whole mommy and daddy kink thing and you're being called mommy and daddy and you're like what you're like college age, that's a little weird. You're too young, dude. Like you haven't even graduated, you don't have a job, you're not really, maybe you do have a job, I don't know. But oh my god, what am I talking about? You know what? Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of like if I continue, like if I continue talking, I'm just never gonna stop. So